Hello.
Hello, thank you.
So lots of listeners will know you, but many will not. So I've got to ask you to explain, why can't we know who you are?
Basically, my work is pretty simple. I take photo, I use photo that we paste as black and white paper, sheets of papers on walls. In certain countries, like here, maybe it's seen as art, and sometimes I'm invited, like in museums and different places. But in other places, for the exact same work, for just pasting paper on wall, it's seen as a crime of vandalism, and that have been the case since I've started, 12, 13 years ago in the suburbs of Paris in France, and the mayor of the city sued me because we pasted in one of the craziest projects in the suburb, and then a year later the riot exploded, and so they had other cats to follow, and so we never had to pay those fines. But it's interesting, to see how photography just on walls can be seen in different manner, depending of the context where it's happening.
So it protects you, gives you some freedom to do what you need to do as an artist.
Yeah, and then also, to be honest, I've started from graffiti, so that's how it all happened. But at some point, I never saw what I would gain from showing my face, and I'm pasting other people's face. In graffiti, you write your own name, so it's about yourself. And I was doing that when I was 13, 14, 15. Then I realized when I started writing other people's names by pasting their photos, it's about them. So sometimes I'm not even here to answer those questions. I want them to answer why they've been part of such a project, what it means to them.
That's such an interesting part of your art, I think, is inviting those people into the conversations, those faces. You mentioned your roots in graffiti. You started out tagging in the streets. You're an internationally well-known artist now, but your art still lives in the streets. Why is that important to you?
It lives everywhere, but the street is like the largest gallery in the world, so I couldn't cut myself from it. But I love to do films or other installation that I can be seen in, inside in museums and stuff. And I've always done that from the very beginning, because when I do a project like in the Middle East, for example, as you mentioned, it's something to walk there and pace there with the people and be there in the street. But sometimes it's only the documentation of that, or the books or the stories that then will be seen here, for example, in Canada or in other places, that makes people realize how do people react out there. And that's more interesting than whatever photo I can put.
So it's important for you to embrace both.
Yeah, to embrace both, and to make sure people can understand, that the art is not in the photo, but in the interaction that happens around it.
That's super important for you. I mean, I've watched some of your presentations, and the local people are involved even with putting up the art. Why has that been important for you?
Because I realized that the part that really, drive me the most was the interactions, were making people come together. And it was always clear to me, because I always go and walk with community in different places around the world, and I've always waited for a place where people would tell me, no, here is no place for art, but I haven't found one. I mean, I've went to North Korea 2-3 years ago. I don't say they're open for art yet, but at least, I wanted to see it by myself. But the interaction is really interesting to me, and is really the most important. Sometimes, like, we have the photo booth trucks happening right now in the city, so you can go and take your photos, and it would print it right away. The photo booth only takes 5 seconds to take your photo. But then the process of taking your poster, going and paste it, meeting other people, thinking what you're going to do with those photos, then, people share them. And social media is great. I use it myself, but only about real stuff that really happened. That's what I'm trying to reconnect. People feel they're over-connected, but they're actually disconnected from each other. And so that's one of the big, link in my work that I try to work on.
Another big thing in your work is faces.
Yeah.
Why faces?
I guess faces is like the modern, like signature, or like it's a way to be out there without having to put like a direct message on it. Depending where you paste it, it would mean something different. So you paste in, on the favelas of Brazil, and it means something, and you paste it on the floor of the plaza in Toronto, and it means something else, even if it's faces. And also I love, when I had to adapt to architecture, I would always crop slowly into eyes. And it also became one of one of the iconic image I love to use, because it represents one person, but at the same time, everybody feel they're represented in it.
Eyes are always evocative. You're here in Toronto for Nuit Blanche this weekend. your big project, big part of your legacy is Inside Out. It's an ongoing project. You've been doing it all over the world. Can you quickly explain how it works?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. For years, I've been going into communities, meeting people, photographing them, and pasting them right away in their community. But I realized that they were the one carrying the project. And so at one point, I was like, wait, I don't want to be the one deciding where those projects could happen. They should be deciding even where it should happen. So I should be out of this conversation. So I put up my process out there and I say, look, guys, this is how I do it. I take a photo and now, 10 years ago, nobody had a camera. Now everybody have a camera, and you can use any kind of cheap camera and send me your photo. I would print it and enlarge it and I would send it back to you wherever you are in the world and for free if you can't afford it. But then you have to stand behind your message, whatever you want to do with it. And so people started to send me photos from around the world, like it started in Tunisia during the revolution. People sent me hundreds of portraits. And then I sent them back. And then when I look what they were doing, they were replacing all the portraits of Ben Ali, the dictator, by their own photos. And then slowly I started realizing how people, depending on the community where they live, they would fight for something else. Sometimes just they wanted to be here and exist on their school. And some others would have to fight for democracy. Some went to jail just for holding their photo in the street. And some others, were pasting it in front of a museum and were doing a party about it. That's fine. There's no, some other people just frame it and put it at home. This project is like a mirror of society. People do it. It's like a whole system that's put out there that's not linked to any brand, because I don't like any brand to sponsor it or any link with any government or anything. It's just people to people.
Well, I'm not sure if you know, but your project was actually influential in the city of Toronto. There was a billboard tax fee for arts that was passed in Toronto. A lot of it had to do with this Inside Out project. I'm not sure if you knew that.
I heard, and last night we had a talk at the museum and someone mentioned it, and it's pretty amazing to see how art can actually, just by visuals, like raise those questions and sometimes brings answers.
You got a prestigious prize from TED. They asked you to change the world through art. Do you believe art can change the world?
It's a tough question. I believe one image at the time, you change the perception we have about the world. And I guess changing the perception we have about one another is a way to slowly change the world.
The one thing I took as far as art changing the world from your work is this defiant thing going on. If you talk about the favelas, for example, and massive art piece. I mean, you've talked about how art almost doesn't make sense in some of these places. Like, it doesn't occur to these people. And I think such a courageous gesture like that makes people believe in change. Do you think that too?
Yeah. When I worked at the time in the favela in Brazil, I wouldn't even believe myself in the project. You go there, you see like kids 8, 10 years old with Kalashnikov. You think I'll have no place there. I just wanted someone to tell me. And they told me when I arrived, they say like, first you can't go up the hill, and second, like you can't make art here. People will not respond to it. And then you meet people and they're so passionate about their place, no matter how crazy the place they live in are. They're really passionate about it. And so I kind of forgot about my project, and I was following those people there, and I couldn't even document or anything because there's no cameras allowed in there. And then one night I just come home, I took a photo from the outside of the favela, from the city, how it looked, and I made a little rendering. And when I came back to that man that I met there named Mauricio, and I showed him, he laughed because, like, what you did on your computer here, that's actually my house neighbor. I know him, we could ask him. He's like, let's go and do it now. Why don't we ask him if we could paste on his photo? I'm not saying we're going to do it, just let's see. And then we went there and he asked his neighbor, and his neighbor was like, oh, is that political? Is that, no, it's just, we want to take photos of the community and paste it there. Would you be okay? Of course, why not? Yeah, come, use my house, paste on it. And then we just made a mark, okay, one house.
Yeah.
Said, why don't we go to the next one? And like that, the project started. And in a day, we had, everybody saying yes. Actually, the power of art and how people respond to it and how people are open to it, because there is this level of unknown. Because I can't say what it's going to change or if it's going to happen, or you couldn't bring anything up there, any crane or any kind of scaffoldings made, the people, the community come together and help making it happen. So I'm always impressed of how much in context where you would think art is not possible, there's actually, it's only by trying that you'll find out.
So interesting. Sounds like art is making you believe more and more in change.
Definitely.
Thanks so much, JR, for stopping by.
Thank you.